So recently, Bitcoin ETFs of CoinShares and 3iQ started trading in Canada. We will go through these news and also look at different aspects of Bitcoin ETFs, for example, their advantages and disadvantages. And later on, I will tell you whether I will invest in a Bitcoin ETF or not. So, hello everyone. In case if you are new to this channel, I am Dr. Subayil Khan. I am a blockchain expert, business strategist, and an award-winning scientist. On this channel, we help you achieve financial confidence via mindset, skill set, and investing. Nowadays, due to crypto bull run, our focus is on blockchain investing, since currently this is the best opportunity, in our opinion, to get astronomical returns on our investment. So before we proceed, I do appreciate if you guys like the video, subscribe and hit the bell so that you can get notifications of upcoming videos as soon as they are released. So first of all, how did the ETF start and when? So the exchange traded funds or ETFs were first introduced to investors on January the 22nd, 1993. And first ETF was the SPDR S&P 500 ETF launched by State Street Global Advisors. It essentially tracked the performance of S&P 500 stock index. Since their introduction in 1993, ETFs have exploded in popularity since investors were looking for alternatives to mutual funds. A Bitcoin ETF will work in the same way and will contain not just Bitcoin but shares of companies, as we will see shortly. So there are several advantages of this instrument, which in essence is a bucket of assets built for the sole purpose of tracking an index which has low management fees and higher intraday price visibility. But of course, we are not saying that it is a perfect way to invest. So ETFs also have their shortcomings, such as low dividends and large bid-ask spreads. One reason why investors like ETFs is that they are more tax efficient. So ETFs can be more tax efficient than mutual funds since they are conceptually passively managed portfolios. Therefore, ETFs and index funds tend to realize fewer capital gains than actively managed mutual funds. So now the question is, are there any Bitcoin ETFs yet? Not in the USA. So during the past years, many investment firms did try to gain regulatory approval for a Bitcoin ETF. In the United States, the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) has not yet approved any Bitcoin ETF application as yet. However, in Canada, the story is very different, as we can see in these news. So as we can see in these news, Bitcoin ETF of CoinShares and 3iQ starts trading in Canada. And these news came out just 2 days back. So BTC ETF starts trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol of BTCQ. Now 3iQ is the leading cryptocurrency asset manager in Canada, and it announced that the CoinShares 3iQ Bitcoin ETF has started trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange TSX. So as we know that Bitcoin is the world's most valuable digital currency, and the most recent week has been a very volatile one for Bitcoin. And its price tanked by 15%, which is normal for Bitcoin in bull runs, where it can go through the corrections of 20, 30, and even 40% before surpassing the previous all-time highs and making new all-time highs. So commenting on the latest announcement, Fred Pai, chairman and CEO of 3iQ, said, "Today is yet another milestone for the 3iQ team, Bitcoin enthusiasts and investors across Canada. Backed by deep industry experts, we are thrilled to be adding the 3iQ CoinShares Bitcoin ETF to our offerings, and especially to partners with CoinShares." So these are indeed great news for the blockchain space in general. And here is the reason why. So if you look at my YouTube channel and if you go into the demographics, you can see that most of my viewers are between 25 and 44 years old. So these people are actually comfortable with the technology. They can go to a centralized exchange, open an account, and then buy Bitcoin over there. And some of them, if not all, are also comfortable by buying Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies on decentralized exchanges and trading them over there. But when it comes to 45 years and above, we can see that just 5.2% of my audience is from that age group. And actually no one is interested in my videos from 55 years and above. And these are the people who are either retired or are about to retire, and they have huge sums of money sitting in the bank account, but they are simply not comfortable to go to an exchange, open an account and buy Bitcoin themselves. And storing their private keys or going to a decentralized exchange is a big no-no for these guys. So most of the wealth is concentrated in this age group in the world, and these are the people who definitely need an ETF to get exposure to this asset class. I mean cryptocurrencies in general and Bitcoin in particular. So how are they going to do that? They are going to do that via an ETF, because these people are actually comfortable in using these investment instruments. So that is why the fact that Bitcoin ETF of CoinShares and 3iQ has started to trade in Canada are big news, because it can really open the floodgates and take the Bitcoin prices to levels that we might not even imagine right now. I remember from the last bull run that everybody was thinking that ETF is going to launch, but it didn't launch. And then all the rest of the news got boring and we entered the bear market. So Bitcoin ETFs can have a huge impact on the overall market cap of cryptocurrencies, and it can skyrocket in a very short amount of time as the floodgates open from these age groups and as they start getting exposure to Bitcoin through ETF, because they are used to using this investment instrument. And now we will first look at the advantages of Bitcoin ETFs, and later we will look at the disadvantages of Bitcoin ETFs. And afterwards, I will tell you whether I will be using this investment instrument or not. So the first advantage of Bitcoin ETFs is convenience. Investing in a Bitcoin ETF will open the floodgates, because even on my channel, as we saw, most of the audience is under 45 years old. So the older people who are close to their retirement age or have already retired in the developed countries would love to get exposure to this asset class in a convenient and intuitive manner. So essentially, you don't need to open an account on a cryptocurrency exchange, and you don't need to know anything about the mechanics or operation of Bitcoin. Also, they don't need to take care of their private keys and so on, since once the private keys are lost, as we know, the Bitcoins are lost for good. A Bitcoin ETF therefore drastically simplifies the process of exposure to this asset class for an investor who belongs to the age group that is not comfortable to open an account on a centralized exchange, or else store their private keys in a hardware wallet and use a decentralized exchange. The second advantage of Bitcoin ETF is diversification and risk management. Now, since an ETF acts like a bucket of assets, a Bitcoin ETF can definitely contain assets in addition to Bitcoin, such as Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, and Amazon stocks. This helps the investors in managing risk via inducing diversification in their portfolio. Therefore, a Bitcoin ETF will help the investors in managing the high volatility of Bitcoin price. And the third advantage of Bitcoin ETFs is tax efficiency. So as we know that Bitcoin is currently not that regulated, and it is also decentralized. Therefore, the majority of the world's tax havens and pension funds don't allow one to purchase Bitcoin. But most likely, this won't be the case of a Bitcoin ETF. So a Bitcoin ETF trading on traditional exchanges would likely be regulated by the SEC and will also be eligible for tax efficiency. And the fourth advantage of Bitcoin ETFs is low cost. So in comparison to mutual funds, exchange traded funds or ETFs, are much cheaper in terms of the fees investors are required to pay. So in most cases, the investors only pay around 1.5 to 2.0% annual fee since they are passively managed. But like anything, ETFs are also not perfect. So there are some disadvantages of Bitcoin ETFs too, and ETFs in general also. So the first disadvantage is management fee. Now, when we hold Bitcoin in a wallet, we don't pay management fee. But this is not the case of Bitcoin ETFs. Usually, a management fee is charged for the value in the form of convenience that it provides. Therefore, if a person owns a large amount of shares in a Bitcoin ETF, it will result in a high amount of management fee over time. The second disadvantage of Bitcoin ETFs is Etf inaccuracy. Since a Bitcoin ETF will hold multiple assets, therefore, due to the different price volatility of these assets, which are contained in an ETF, the gains which an investor will be making will not be the same as holding Bitcoin in a wallet. And also the losses, where the price fluctuations of Bitcoin clearly reflects in the gain or loss of an investor. Because in that case, you are only holding Bitcoin. This is all what you have. Therefore, a 20% rise in the price of Bitcoin will mean a 20% rise in value. But in case of an ETF, the investor will be having the shares of companies also apart from Bitcoin under the same bucket of an ETF. Hence, for example, a 20% rise in the price of Bitcoin will not mean a 20% increase in the value of the ETF fund due to its other holdings. Therefore, even though an ETF will result in convenience but won't be an accurate tracker of the price of Bitcoin. And the third key disadvantage of a Bitcoin ETF is the inability to reflect a cryptocurrency portfolio. So when a bull run comes, the highest gains are made in altcoins and not in Bitcoin. And this phenomena repeats in every bull run. And these prints in the altcoin prices are termed as altcoin seasons. Since the Bitcoin ETF won't contain cryptocurrencies, but most likely just the shares of companies together with Bitcoin, therefore one will miss out on astronomical gains of altcoins in the cryptocurrency bull markets. Also on cryptocurrency exchanges, one can trade Bitcoin for other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, Litecoin, Ripple, XRP, and more. But a Bitcoin ETF will not be eligible to trade for other cryptos as it is not a cryptocurrency but simply an investment fund. And the fourth disadvantage of Bitcoin ETF is the lack of Bitcoin ownership. So the fourth disadvantage of a Bitcoin ETF is the lack of Bitcoin ownership. So many people like to own Bitcoin themselves because they see it as a hedge against central banks, fiat currencies, hyperinflation, and the stock market. By being independent of central banks, which are money printing machines essentially, Bitcoin acts as a way to mitigate risks associated with the situations such as hyperinflation. Bitcoin also protects users and investors by providing privacy through the Bitcoin blockchain. Also, a Bitcoin ETF will be regulated by the government. Therefore, the intrinsic benefits of holding a Bitcoin by yourself by owning the private keys will be eliminated. And now we come to the interesting part. So will I invest in a Bitcoin ETF or will I be using this investment instrument? So my answer is absolutely not. Since firstly, it is my domain of expertise and I am a blockchain expert myself, therefore I will be rather happy to own some Bitcoins myself and allocate a small portion of my total portfolio to it. Therefore, for me, the convenience which comes with an ETF in the form of not holding private keys, managing volatility, and so on are irrelevant since I can allocate a small portion of portfolio to the Bitcoin which is not bundled together with other assets in a Bitcoin ETF. Therefore, I will rather like to hold the underlying asset itself, that is Bitcoin, since I believe that in altcoin seasons, one can make good gains in shorter time with altcoins, and locking your capital in an ETF won't allow me to do this since the ETFs will most likely have shares of companies together with Bitcoin and not the altcoins. Thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate if you guys like the video, subscribe and hit the bell so that you can get the notifications of upcoming videos as soon as they are released. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.